Very good morning, dear friends. I have come out with an idea of sharing with you all my perceptions and my feelings on the theme and the treatment of the poet's literary strategy to make comparison between human life and the plant life, or for that matter, any life that is on earth, and the emphasis being laid by the poet as to how each strand of life has a short stay on this earth, and how togetherness, whether it is a journey from the physical condition to the physical condition, or a journey from the physical to the spiritual, is important. I mean that togetherness, being together, having a companion, having someone to share your feelings, your sentiments, it's very important whether you go for a short journey or you go on a long journey. Now, Robert Herrick is the poet of a short lyric titled To Daffodil. I would like to make a brief comparison between the two titles created by two different poets. The Daffodil by William Wordsworth, the pioneer poet of the Romantic school of poetry, and Robert Herrick, a poet of great significance, but not of the stature of William Wordsworth, who happens to talk directly to Daffodil, as if making a direct address to the plant and appealing it to give companionship to the poet who is not almost on the journey, but about to start his journey, a passage from this physical world into the spiritual world. So, well, as William Wordsworth is narrating his experiences of a time when he was in early adult and he had been overjoyed at the sight of the dancing daffodils in hundreds and thousands, and speaking about his bank balance in terms of the pleasure that he stored in his mind, and in terms of the use of that bank balance when William Wordsworth is through the lean season of his mental and spiritual condition. In this poem, Robert Herrick, a 19th century poet, and having some sort of similarity with poets like the Romantic ones and even the pre-Romantic poets like William Cooper, Robert Graves, and in their manner, this poet is talking about how human life is short-lived and how human beings, despite short life granted to them, have to have a sense of togetherness to go through the thickness and thinness of the conditions of life. The poet Robert Herrick is addressing the plant and requesting the plant that don't hasten away, don't go on your last journey from this earth to another so soon, because my journey is also to start a bit later. If you go now, you'll be alone and you won't have any companion to give you emotional support or to help you have some sharing that releases you from the pressure of going alone. So please stay on for some time so that I give you my company and you and I together can have this passing out from the physical world into the spiritual world in an environment of rather joy or give and take sort of condition. In fact, Robert Herrick is a poet who personifies daffodil, and he gives attributes that human beings have to this plant. And he makes the situation comparable and very interestingly comparable that plant life or human life or non-human, non-plant life, any life has some sort of a soul, some sort of a spark of the same divine power who has created everything. Unlimited things may be not only on this planet that we know as Earth, but maybe on so many other planets known and unknown. Divinity is everywhere present in one form or the other, in one manifestation or the other. So the poet's idea is that this cycle of birth and death has been continuously going on. It started in the time immemorial. It continues even now, and it will continue until the end of this created world that we know, or other created worlds that we don't know, or most of us don't know. The beauty of the short lines of the lyric lies in the choice of the words and the harmony that is created between the words of each line of the poem. The poet starts with a very fervent appeal that you and I are not different as far as the pangs of journeying alone is concerned. On any kind of outing, on any kind of journey, when a person is alone, then that person feels some sort of vacuity. He feels he could be sharing his perceptions of the surroundings, the flowers that he sees on the way, the positions of the stars, the twinkles of the stars, if it is evening time or night time. So a companion is a very important factor to rejoicing the journey. The journey may be short or long, but a companion is always a very beautiful and very significant support. So the poet says, although the poet has this idea in mind, principally, that human life is very short. Plant life may be shorter. Certain animals have a longer life than humans. Even among the humans, a few people have relatively longer life. Most of the people have average life. Some of the people who are shortcut, I mean, they are taken away by the angel death. They also live at one point or the other, maybe in infancy, maybe just after birth, maybe in the womb of the mother, maybe after 5 years spending on the earth. So this journey of passing from the physical world into the spiritual world, or from the temporary world that this earth is to the permanent world that we have to go back, is always there. And therefore the poet seems to be emphasizing the fact that we have to live in a very nice way. We have to live in a very systematic way. When I say systematic, as I have understood, that there is a hint of systematicness in leading the life because it gives you harmony. It makes you feel that you have some sort of peace of mind. You have some sort of certainty in your life. And if we live in a very disorganized indisciplined manner. We don't have any sense of stability. We don't have any sense of leaving something behind important for the people who survive us. Then that life is not very useful or fruitfully lived. Death is inevitable, all of us know. Everybody has to live. But the one who leaves this world having left something significant, ideas or thoughts or certain practical inventions, anything that we leave has to come to the use of the people who survive us, who come after us. So, if life is brittle, if life is so transitory, then why not live it so so naturally, so systematically, so purposefully that after we are gone, something is left behind for others to remember, and we find our place in the hearts of the people who live after us. Otherwise, living life doesn't have any meaning. Even Shakespeare, in one of his plays, wrote about the possibility of achieving higher station of life. In the drama, which is a tragi-comic play, Tempest, Shakespeare talks about a higher station of life that the king is supposed to have attained after he is drowned. Although the episode of drowning or the suspicion of the king having been drowned, that is only a suspicion. In reality, he is alive. But this idea Shakespeare wants to leave for the people to reflect on, that if this present life is lived not only for oneself but for others, if this life is lived honestly with purity of heart, with actions that are supposed to bear fruits, not only for the doers of the actions, but also for those who are not participants in the actions. So, in a way, you work for the welfare of the society at large. So, when you die, then you have a station higher in another kind of life. And that is what is intended. Even in scriptures, in the mythologies, in the religious books, people talk about heavenly abode or attainment of heaven after this earthly life ends. And they believe, the scholars of the ancient times, the religious greats, they always told people that you follow the path of righteousness, you follow the path of honesty, you follow the path of adoration, recognition of the impartial, honest, and equalizing rule of the Almighties, and you would get heavenly abode. You would have your rest in heaven. So it is obvious, even in our day to day life, sometimes we see that if we sow well, if the seeds are nicely sown, then the sproutings of the seeds are very nice. The plants that come out of the seeds are healthy and they bear us fruits or seeds manifold. So perhaps the poet seems to suggest that this life is short. So what should we do? Should we live this short life and go off without any registration of any of our merits? No. The poet seems to suggest. And this is suggestion that most of the poets, most of the writers, most of the authors, they live somewhere in the works that they create. The suggestions are to be taken, to be first understood and taken seriously, austerely, or with great sense of interest in them, in the suggestions. So the suggestion is that let us live together, let us work together, let us have a sense of communality, give and take. Take the help when you need, give the help when others need. Even if it is just a journey, a pilgrimage from one place to another, you have someone who may come to your aid if you fall down, if you come into a crisis, if you don't understand the situation. The presence of the other person is always a help. It may not guarantee, the presence may not guarantee your safe passage, but the presence of someone like you, better than you, or like you, or even inferior to you, in one way or the other, the presence will certainly help you. And along with that, the poet also seems to suggest that forms may be different, spans of life may be different, colors or pigmentation of the skins of the people, the barks of different kinds of trees may be different because diversities are everywhere. And this God made nature diverse. Even G.M. Hopkins, a great modern poet, though he was a Jesuit priest, he praised God in one of his poems for making this world varied, multicolored. In the poem titled Pied Beauty, he talks about that. How contrastive things have been created by God, and how each thing is a complement to the other. But one thing that has been emphasized, that has been underscored by all the poets, all the philosophers, is this, that divine spark is everywhere. We all belong to Him, or we all belong to them, the Lord and the Lordess. And therefore, our life has to be lived in such a way that there is a pleasure in going off. When you work in an office for 30 years, 35 years, or 10 years only, and when it comes the right time for you to leave because somebody else will take your place, or you have chosen to retire, and if you have done the right kind of work, if your behavior has been sweet, proper, then people, they miss you. Some of them even weep at your departure. They embrace you. Even if you are gone, sometimes in their leisure or when the contexts demand, they talk about you. So, why not leave this world in such a fashion, in such a manner that sometimes people mention us in their discussions? They talk about us, they give references to what good we did and what good things we left for this world. So the entire poem, it's a lyric, extremely feelingful, extremely emotional, somber also, because when it is the talk of departure, it is something like separation. And death is such a separation that it's very painful to those who survive. That's why the one who is gone is gone. But the dear ones, the near ones who survive, the gone one, they feel the pinch, they feel the absence. Many of them weep for months. Many of them take vows not to have their favorite food items, not to have their favorite clothes on, not to go on their favorite picnic spots, not to go on pilgrimages also, in the absence of the gone one or the gone ones. Such is the bond between the survivors and the one who has left this world. And therefore, it is all the more essential that we leave behind the connection of love, compassion, the connection of respect for one another. Saying is very easy, but practicing these ideas or practicing this kind of behavior is very difficult. But who doesn't know? Anything that is done with difficulty, anything that is achieved through labor, honesty, that has that has more importance, that is lasting, that abides by you. Anything that is got cheaply, that comes and evaporates. You don't have any strong attempt, regret, because it was not yours. It was not your making. It was not the result of your labor, of your work, of your efforts. So all these issues, the transitoriness of human life and the transitoriness of all other kinds of life. No life is permanent. So it is a kind of lamentation. But at the same time, there is also a suggestion given to the readers that we are from the poet that this passing away is essential to have a new life. To continue in the same life for hundreds of years may not be may not be good, may not be very interesting, may not be liked. So changes are the only constant. We come, we live, we experience, and then we go off. We have another form of life. Most of us, we don't know what form of life, what sort of life we had before, and how that form is different from the present one. But then this is the reality that the earth revolves around the sun. So each individual life revolves around the system of transformation. Nothing is destroyed, everything is changed. Even in the sciences, chemistry, physics, scientists have talked about in terms of conservation theory, in terms of the cycle that remains forever. Things change their forms, things change their, suppose you can say, shapes, but substance is the same. We die and we get burnt or we get buried. Plants also get cut down, they decay, they mingle into the earth. Certain things get mixed up with the mud, with the water, but the essential elements remain. And again, the poem by Robert Herrick titled To Daffodil is very interesting. The style of talking to daffodil so appealingly, so nicely, itself is something that I have enjoyed reading the text. Another aspect